We are back. Yes, we are. And we are almost into the month of March, which means Phillies baseball is inching closer. Yes, it is. And who better to talk to than the man who did an amazing job during that run last season, just painting the picture, illustrating it. It was an amazing job. And he is Scott Franzke, Phillies radio play-by-play voice. Scott, oh, man, look at you. Look at you in the booth ready to rock and roll. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Why wouldn't I be? I'm watching live BPs here at Baycare Ballpark. The sun is shining. It's about 77 degrees, maybe a little better. I know.
Scott, the boys of summer.
We don't have much room to complain about weather, Scott, but I'm always a little jealous when somebody throws the Clearwater temperature out there. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty nice here today for sure.
So they're live BP, and I understand, Scott, they're all trying to acclimate to the pitch clock, right? And they're utilizing that today as well. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they got the timers going in between each pitch. They've even gone down to, if there's a simulated runner on first base, they'll stretch it out to 20 seconds as opposed to 15. The guys we've seen so far, we saw Wheeler, we saw Craig Kimbrell. I mean, Wheeler's a fast worker anyways. I don't think it's going to bother him too much. Jose Alvarado was out here a minute ago, and we're about to see Sir Anthony Dominguez do the same.
You're muted, Derek.
Scott, got to ask you, do you still get jacked up for that first spring game of a season? Because I'm comparing it to me with preseason football games. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, okay, get this game over with. I'm done. I'm serious. I mean, let's get to the regular season, please. Do you still get that juice for that first preseason game?
Yeah, definitely the first one. There's no doubt. I will say, obviously the way the schedule has been the last few years and the way teams run camps, I don't mean just the Phillies, but all teams run camps. You get an at-bat you get to see from the big guns and whatnot. And then it's kind of a learning curve, a host of non-roster players and minor leaguers up for the day and that kind of thing. So it's always great to come down here. It's really exciting just to kind of be in the environment again. I do love getting on the air, and I'm, really looking forward to tomorrow. But I will say, maybe we could apply the same math to a fall preseason where it's only 4 or 5 games, right? There's 20 or so of them for baseball. I'll say after the first 4 or 5, I'm ready to go.
Talk to you in about 3 weeks is what you're trying to say, or whatever it is.
Oh, man.
Scott, well, let me ask you about last year. It had been 11 years, for all of us, to have playoff baseball and that fun and that excitement and that juice that it brings. Did you, at one point in time, did you sort of, whether it was a St. Louis series or the Braves or the Padres or the World Series, did you kind of pinch yourself like, man, we're back? Like I sort of forgot this feeling for a minute.
Yeah, I think when the first home game in the playoffs, I mean, St. Louis was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, and winning on the road. And, the opening of the series in Atlanta was great as well, that game 1 win. But I think when we got home and, saw the reaction of the fans, the way the crowd filled up and the way the crowd was so loud from beginning to end, I think that was the time. And obviously in particular, that inning against Strider when Hoskins hit the homer. For me, that was the moment that I thought something was going on, something different was happening. And, again, it was that same feeling from back in 08, 09, 10, that amazing things could happen at any time.
Well, let me ask you as far as, feelings and everything going into this season. Is it kind of the same, or do you feel a much more anticipated year right now, with them coming off, we understand coming off the World Series, but how is this team as far as when you look at it compared to last year's team?
Well, I do think it's a better team on paper. But again, at this time last year, we weren't expecting Bryce Harper to be out for a big chunk of the year, right? There was a lot of enthusiasm this time last year, but this is different. I know that they're going to, have to find a way to sort of carry the load without Harper in there for a while. All the reports have been good, but it's still going to be a couple of months, maybe 3. But it might be July 1 before we see him. Who knows? And even then, it'll still be again in that sort of restrictive space of just being the DH. But I think it's a better team. I think on paper the bullpen is far deeper. This time of year, everybody feels like they're better. and foul ball coming back. It was coming back hot too.
Uh-oh.
Everybody feels like they're a little better, but I think without a doubt the Phillies are better. If they're healthy, they're a better team at this point than they were a year ago.
Scott, as you sit here right now, how surprised are you that Dombrowski and those guys were able to make some of the moves they made in the offseason to strengthen this roster, both at the plate and in the bullpen?
Well, I mean, money talks, right? I mean, they threw a lot of money at some holes in the field, and obviously Trey Turner is a big one, and but they made some trades as well. The trade to acquire Soto, and we haven't seen him yet, but the trade to acquire Soto could prove to be big down the road. Take a little bit of the load off a guy like Alvarado. Makes everybody, when you're deeper, everybody stays fresher. They don't have to be relied on quite as much. And I think that's to the Phillies' benefit. So I'm not surprised that they attempted to get better. The thing about it is this division, everybody's good. I mean, it's a really tough division, and the Mets are better, and the Braves think they're better, and the Phillies think they're better. So I'll be interested to see how this all plays out.
Scott, on that note, do you think they take a run at Turner if Harper's healthy the whole year? If they did, was this in part done because, hey, look, we got to at least cover that gap for a half a season? I know he's here long term, I get that, but would they maybe have been as hot and heavy on him had Harper been healthy?
I would think they still would have been of a mind to go get him. I think they felt like from the outset that if he was interested in coming here, and if he was interested in signing long term, that they had identified him as the player that would fit the best for a lot of different reasons, not just his particular position of shortstop, but the kind of athlete he is, the way they think he may or may not age, the way his skills are right now in the prime of his career, the way his personality fits with the guys that are already there, whether it's Harper or Schwarber. I had the good fortune of being in his group for the Phillies golf outing yesterday.
Okay.
And I mean, you can tell he's the guys he knows, he's already got a rapport with. The guys he doesn't know, he's trying to earn a rapport with them and build relationships and build friendships. And I think, the guy knows he's going to be here for a long time. And he's as much a centerpiece of this organization as some of the others like a Harper is right now.
What is, what's your sense like it? As Castellanos, what is he looking like, in BP? Is Reese, is he at a more pep in his step going into BP? You see a difference in how they're approaching the bat?
Well, I mean, I think right now it's still so early for the hitters. I mean, everybody's upbeat right now. Everybody's healthy. That's a big thing. So everybody's upbeat and kind of getting their feet under them. I think like it is with most spring trainings, the hitters tend to look a little bit behind the pitchers. I know Nick's feels like he's got a fresh start for 23. I mean, he wants to just obviously 22 ended up great on a team standpoint, but not from a personal standpoint for him. So I know he's looking for bigger and better things. And you alluded to Reese there as well. I mean, I got a chance to talk with him the other day. He looks great. He's got a great head about him. You don't have to worry about Reese, whether there's a contract out there or not. I think you're still going to get the same Reese Hoskins day in and day out that you know, and there's some comfort in that, whether you're a manager or a general manager, you know what you're going to get. And I think they're ready to get, the same kind of production out of Reese that they've gotten over the last 5 years.
Scott, as you sit there and soak in the sun and fun and antagonize us unmercifully,
unmercifully. Yeah, he's been relentless the whole time.
I can turn the camera around. That might even be a little
Don't
tougher.
Don't do it. But seriously, as you sit there and you're watching BP and all this stuff, you're also preparing to call games as well. So take me through your mindset of what you're looking at and what you're stowing away as you get ready for that first broadcast and other future broadcasts as well in training camp.
I think a lot of it is, it's trying to collect some stories. The bios and the stats and stuff like that, those come pretty easy. But I think it's trying to get some, face-to-face time with guys, learn about what they're working on or what they've been working on, learn about what they've gone through, whether it's injury-wise or swing adjustments or anything like that. So I think a lot of it is just trying to gather some stories. I mean, the first couple of games, it's kind of autopilot because you're just back at it. And again, it's not like you need reams of information about Rhys Hoskins, right? He's going to bat once on Saturday, maybe twice or whatever. And then I'm going to have to dig up something on somebody else. So honestly, with a lot of these spring games, some of that broadcast stuff is done on the fly, but you do try to collect stories that you're going to use throughout the course of the month of March. And, you just try to have it organized enough. For me, that's the big thing, is I just try to have it organized enough where if a situation presents itself during the game, maybe it's boring, maybe it's not, I don't know, but maybe it's relatable, that you can go to that story and you can dig it up and use it in a certain way.
My favorite, Scott, is spring training. You're in about the 5th, and there is a position.
I'm in the
play.
5th of what?
Oh, yeah, good point. You might need it in 5th inning. And there's some guy who wasn't on the roster, and LA is perturbed because number 78 wasn't listed on the opposing team's roster, and he's coming in at shortstop, and it's no idea who this cat is. And it's just like you try to guess.
And the other one is when there's two number 78. You're like, which number 78 are we looking at here? Those are always good moments. And, those teams, they bring a minor leaguer or two over for the day or whatnot, or might have a last minute they needed somebody to fill in. There's a lot of scramble mode going on 4th, 5th, 6th inning and beyond.
But LA doesn't try and hide it. He's just
oh no,
that's great.
I mean, I always tell them, I said, hey, all we got to do is act like we know what we're talking about. People are going to believe us, right?
Right. That's half a life. Just fake it till you make it, right?
Right. I mean, the only one who's really going to know that we're full of it is number 78's mom and dad, right?
Well, hey, Scott, let me ask you this, man, because I got to call a couple of spring football games, and the rosters get long, man. But looking at storylines going into, this, in fact, even the game tomorrow, is Turner and Schwarber, is that a big story or not? You think that's the biggest story going into this? Who's going to lead off? Or is it, or I'm just making it up like everybody else, I'm making it bigger than what it really is.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you're making it bigger than what it is. I will say this. I think camp is somewhat devoid of big storylines. There aren't a lot of jobs to be won. So I think maybe to some extent we're looking for something to talk about. For me, Rob Thompson has already said, or sort of hinted at the fact that he's probably going to lead off. I know Schwarber was in that spot last year. I think a lot of it has to do with, as he goes through the spring, and by he, I mean Rob Thompson, as he goes through the spring, he's going to look at the lineup from a more collective standpoint. It's not just about Turner hitting first or Schwarber hitting first. It's how all the pieces match together.
Right.
That will change. That may be very different once Harper comes back to the lineup, because you got two big bats that are both left-handed in Schwarber and Harper that you don't necessarily want to stack back to back. So I think as it goes through, he's thinking through a lot of those things in his mind. I think Turner, if he leads off of this team, he can score 130 runs. I mean, with new rules, if he's on base a lot, all these ground balls that wouldn't get through the right side, or he's going to go first or third on those now with the shift out of the way. And I mean, I think he's got a chance to score a ton of runs. Well, really anywhere he hits, but certainly if he's hitting in the leadoff spot.
Scott, let me ask you about the rules changes in terms of the Phillies offense, the shift, the bigger bags, whatever other one you want to throw in there. Do you think it really aids them? I mean, you're going to get Harper back at some point, a lefty, you have Schwarber, guys who will pull the ball, let's face it.
Right.
And not to mention, you got some guys who can steal some bags too. How much will the new rules changes help them, aid them offensively?
Well, I think, it's funny. I was watching some video clips, little breakdowns of the rule and the shift rule in particular. And they went right to the video of the World Series, and it was all Harper and Schwarber highlights. Ground balls to the right side that they might hit 105 miles an hour, but they turn into outs. So I think that has the potential to be very, very beneficial to the Phillies. I think it'll be interesting to see as the season goes along, how many teams are willing to give up a left fielder, perhaps against guys like that, whether their baseball analytics people tell them that that's the way to go. They can't shift the infield, but they can shift the outfielders.
Wow.
It could be those times when a team feels like it's worth it. But
Jeez.
we'll give up on left field and we'll put the left fielder in shallow right. With somebody like Schwarber maybe.
That's going to be fascinating, man.
Yeah.
No protection out there in the outfield potentially. Wow.
A flare to left could turn into a triple, or with
Easily.
somebody with speed, it could turn into a inside the park home run.
Huh.
Do you think the rule changes in general are for the betterment of the game? Were they necessary? I mean, we grew up watching baseball a certain way. The only thing we screamed about was the length of games. In terms of the strategy of the game, nobody ever complained. I mean, did we need bigger bases? Do we really have to take away the shift?
Yeah. Well, I think from my standpoint anyway, it wasn't so much the length of game, it was the lack of activity during a game.
Mm-hmm.
As the game evolved into this strikeout or home run parade, it was either a walk, a strikeout, or a homer. There just weren't that many other results. And I do think that it has the chance to bring some different things back to the game that we haven't seen lately. Obviously, pitchers can get it and go, right? I mean, they can fire and they can, get into a rhythm. Hitters can't step out all the time. And, I'm thinking about a guy like Max Scherzer, who likes to work quick. And the Phillies used to wear him out. Odubel Herrera would step out, call time. Right. And they can't do that anymore. They can only do it once during an at-bat. So I do think if they can get some more activity and get some more action, showcase a little more athleticism. Middle infielders have to show off their range a little bit more. You can't have Max Muncy necessarily play second base all the time because he doesn't have the range, right? But in previous years, you could shift him and just plop him over there. Now that's not going to be as prevalent. So I do think it's going to bring some different excitement, a different level of excitement back to it.
Have you heard anything, Scott? Like how are they acclimating? Whether it's the pitchers with the clock or the hitters knowing they can't adjust their batting glove 16 times. Like are the guys starting to get it? Are you hearing guys saying, "Man, this is tough"? Or
it's funny. The players who have had minor league experience, they're accustomed to it.
Right.
Derek Paul was saying today, he said, he got to Wrigley Field last year and he's used to the new rules, and he gets into the box and he looks up and Marcus Stroman isn't anywhere near the pitcher's mound. He's wandering around and taking all kinds of time. So for those guys, it won't be a big adjustment. They're used to it. It'll be hit or miss, pardon the pun. I mean, there will be guys that have struggles with it. There will be other guys. I do think that the results in the minor leagues showed that once they got into it and learned it, they got used to it and they adjusted.
And I'm sure it's from a broadcaster standpoint, it's not the worst thing in the world for you either. That we could be knocking 20, 25 minutes off per game.
It's not the worst thing. And, it'll for us, honestly, it might force us to be a little more concise or a little quicker, or a little different on the air. I don't know how it's going to look once they play it. I think the actual length of game might not be reduced quite as much as it was in the minors, because you might have more action on the bases. You might have more runs scored.
It's true.
So may be a little bit of a trade-off there. The pitchers throw it quicker, but more runs lead to longer games. So we'll see.
How big is the Taijuan Walker addition to this rotation? I mean, it's you really got some length now, it feels like, with Suarez establishing himself last year, and then the fifth spot's going to be really fun to watch what happens there with Painter and everybody else, Falter, etc. But how big are some of those additions on the back end? Because we haven't seen that kind of depth with this Phillies team in a while.
Yeah, I think it's important. And again, to think that they're going to have 5 starters for the course of the year is just ridiculous. No team's ever able to do that. And, given the workload these guys had coming, out of the playoffs last year, they're going to be real careful with guys like Wheeler and Nola and not try to push them, say, beyond the limit. So I think, Walker is a guy who's been pretty steady in terms of, 5 innings, 6 inning kind of guy, and get you into your deep bullpen. I think you're still going to see a lot of that where the Phillies ride a bullpen that's pretty deep. But I do think there's a lot of depth there. They still like Bailey Falter a lot. Obviously, Painter's been kind of wowing in his bullpen sessions. I haven't personally seen him throw yet, but I talked to LA yesterday about him. He saw him pitch earlier in the week, and his word was wow. He's really floored by the kid, who's not only has great stuff, but seems like he has an idea. And I was going to see Mick Abel there, but Mick Abel just finished up his BP. I didn't really get a chance to see him while talking to you guys. But, you know, there's a chance a guy like that could help out down the road too this year. So they do, I think, feel like they have a lot more depth than they had certainly this time a year ago.
With that depth on the back end of the bullpen and the arm strength that they have, will there be a definitive closer, or will it be closer by committee? Because I don't mind with what I'm looking at on paper with the flamethrowers they have on the back end of this bullpen. I don't mind closer by committee.
I don't really either, especially the way it worked last year.
Yep.
For some, you know, if it hadn't worked last year, but it worked. I mean, they played matchups really well, and Rob, you know, played the matchups, you know, when he wanted to and the way he wanted to. And I think we're going to see more of the same. And now it's just you have what you feel like are more weapons that could handle the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings you had a year ago.
Well, is there any difference, or should it be a difference? You know, because G was with Tom. Well, Thompson was with G for a long time. Do you see any difference in the way they went into spring than you saw with G?
Well, the way Thompson handled the bullpen, you mean, or
no, just overall, just, you know, going into this, you know, just overall coaching, overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see more of exactly what we saw last year, to be honest with you. I mean, I think they're going to run things pretty much the same way. You know, the old don't mess with success, right? And they proved, you know, I think Rob Thompson acquitted himself obviously very nicely as a skipper. The players love him. They love the atmosphere around him and the coaches. I mean, they, you know, again, I refer to something, you know, away from the ballpark, like the golf event yesterday. You can see the camaraderie that these guys have. It's a good group. It's a fun group to be around, and they're a group that likes being with one another and likes playing. So I think we'll see more of the same.
All right, Scott, last one. It's a two-part. Favorite restaurant down there in the Tampa Clearwater area? Favorite touristy spot for people who maybe have never been down, who might be, you know, rolling down pretty soon to take in the action?
Yeah, well, I mean, just from a Clearwater standpoint, you just got to stroll the beach, and it's, you know, it's beyond just Philly. Obviously, there's a lot of Phillies people down here, but it's spring break and all that other stuff, and it's crowded. I mean, it's busy down there on the beach. So get down there and, you know, people watch for a while. I think that's certainly worth a trip. Favorite restaurant, I tend to favor a place like Bobby's Bistro. You ever been there?
I know.
It's a little smaller joint, but really good food. It's next to the Beachcomber, Bob Heilman's Beachcomber, which is another one. I know the Phillies do a lot of events there, but the bistro is in the back, and that's, if I'm going to go for a nice meal that's a little quieter, a little on the quieter side, that's where I'll go.
Good call. Scott, listen, man, is it LA with you tomorrow? Who's with you tomorrow?
LA tomorrow.
1 o'clock game, 94 WIP. Scott, we do appreciate it, man. We can't wait to hear the calls this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. We appreciate it.
Enjoy, brother. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Good catching up with you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Right, take care. The great Scott Franzke right there. And join us. And it's great, Gunner. I get this feeling, man, when it's this time of year, because I'm like you. It means spring. It's getting warmer.
Yes.
But when it's the excitement I used to get for training camp, when we would see guys walking to the dorms with their video games and their flat screen TVs. The first, you know, videos I get of these guys doing their thing, it makes me think baseball season's getting close, man. And that's always exciting for sure.
See, with training camp, I used to get jacked up for the first few days of training camp. Number one, like you just said, you get to see what new gadgets the players are bringing to their dorms. And then you always got jacked up for that first day of hitting, especially in Andy Reid's camp, because you just knew there was going to be one or two fights. But see, now they don't do that much anymore. So it's like, it's so bland now. It's like, you know, so the last training camp I went to was like, this is it?
Yeah.
You kidding me? You know, I'm standing out here getting heat stroke for this.
Right. I mean, it's plus, you know, they just don't do as much as they used to do back in the day. I mean, if you're late, if you're 15 minutes late, hell, you've missed half a practice.
Yeah, you miss it all.
Right. You know, so you can't miss it, you know. But you can't complain about the results. The results are they ended up in the
22 starters. We're still all 22. We're starting the Super Bowl, man. You will not hear me complain about the way they're
absolutely not. I'm the old timer that lets you walk on this grass now.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
And you know what? Like, I think all sports have implemented to this extent. Obviously, baseball and the other sports, you're not worried about the injuries, but everything's faster now. Maybe that's just to keep the guys' attention. Whatever. It's like quicker stations. Even baseball, man, it used to be way longer. You drill down on things. It's not like that anymore. It's just the way of the world now.
The one thing that I really enjoyed when I covered spring trainings was you had more access to players than in any other kind of training camp.
Yeah.
Even when after the locker room was closed, the guys be hanging out in the parking lot. You could walk up to them and talk to them and stuff like that. You would see them in town somewhere, and they stand there holding a conversation. If they knew you by face, and even if they didn't know you by name, they just stand there hold conversations with you. Football player, basketball players is so regimented, point A to point B. I'm done. I'm out. Yada yada yada. Mm-hmm. Baseball player, it's a completely different beast in terms of how you. Now 6 weeks of spring training, that's a little too much. 20-something games, but it's such a relaxed atmosphere in terms of the volume of stories that you can get from them, and you don't feel like you're rushed. Like with football camps, you got to get it now, and if you don't get it, you're going to call, hey, did you get this interview? I heard he said this. Well, you got one crew covering 10 different players you can't get everybody.
Right.
You can miss something in a baseball locker room and training camp and recover as they're coming outside the locker room later.
I will hear you. All right, let's get a quickie in, and we are set our sights on the birds and football. JAKIB will be joining us on the other side. We'll dive into everything football when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek. That's Barrett. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Right now, I'll tell you about Pro Action Restoration. Yeah, Pro Action Restoration is the place that you reach out to if your home, your business, a property you may own, goes through the pain of water, fire, smoke, mold damage, whatever the case may be. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. And look, I don't talk about these places unless I've experienced it myself. I had problems at my parents' house years back. It's a Saturday. I reached out to them. They got right out there, okay? And they cleaned up the mess in their basement. The crew was professional. The price was right, clean, the whole nine. They're licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company. And here's the thing. It could be water, it could be fire, it could be smoke, mold remediation, any of those. But there's a lot of other things that go on, and you're not really sure who to reach out to. Give them a call. They'll let you know. They can handle anything. 610-623-3760. 610-623-3760 or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's Pro Action